Hey everybody, it's Georgia Weedman, author of Penetration Testing, a hands-on introduction to hacking, and your instructor for this accompanying lab. So this time we're going to look at post-exploitation privilege escalation. So we may get onto a system, we've looked at some instances where we came in as just a regular user, or we were like www data. So we didn't have complete privileges on the box, and thus, we may not be able to get to everything that we want to get to, but just like services that are listening on ports that have had vulnerabilities that we've been able to exploit, local services that aren't listening on a port could also have vulnerabilities. So if you've got something that's running at a higher privilege level like root or system, and it has a local privilege escalation vulnerability, and you are on the box as a lesser privileged user, you may be able to exploit it. So that's what we're going to look at now. So we do already have valid credentials for this box, so to kind of simulate, we've already exploited it. We can SSH in as just a regular user, Jackie with password. Jackie should change her password. That's a bad password. All right, so let's take a look at this and start up our terminal. And as usual, IP adder. Yours will be different, but .2 is Cali and .3 is our target. So if we SSH as Jackie at our target, yes, I'd like to continue. Jackie's password is password, and we're logged in as a regular user called Jackie. So what we want to do is look for services that are running on here that may have vulnerabilities. So we can do ps-aux and see what's running. Wow, let's do that again where we can see it all. All right, so you look on here, we have something running here, bin badge, bin check down. Not entirely sure what that is. Looks like just some sort of script, but if we cat out what's in there, check dash down. So it's just a simple bash script, never ending while loop, while do. So it runs user bin, user local bin, check rootkit, and then sleeps for 60 seconds. So basically it runs check rootkit every 60 seconds. So real simple guy there. I went ahead and pulled up, if you're not familiar what check rootkit is, it checks for signs of a rootkit. So nothing is safe from having security vulnerabilities. Building stuff that has no security vulnerabilities in it whatsoever is not really something we've been able to pull off as, software engineers at this point. So even security products can lead to things like local privilege escalation. Like Travis Ormandy, who works at Project Zero, does a lot of this, looks specifically at security products to find vulnerabilities in them. Just because it's a security product doesn't mean that you don't need to, keep abreast of vulnerabilities that come out, keep it up to date, all our good security hygiene things. So, in this particular case, check rootkit that looks for rootkits actually had a vulnerability. So, it looks like the current version of this is 0.53, just looking at its page. But our question would be, what version is on here? So let's see. We need to find the version of it. Can I just call it check rootkit -v -v? Oh, it's a big V for version. This says it's check rootkit version 0.49. We can go back to Google. We can also, use our search exploit for check rootkit. Oh, we're logged in on that box. It doesn't know search exploit. Let's just go ahead and exit out of there and go back to Cali, and then we do a search exploit. Always good to remember where you're logged into. Search exploit. Check rootkit. So it says it's got check rootkit local privilege escalation Metasploit module. That's helpful. And it's check rootkit 0.49. So exactly what we need. Oddly enough, exactly what we need is in our lab teaching us about this. So Okay, so let's pull up MSF console. So the first thing is, in order to use our local privilege escalation module, we do need an open session on there. And since we already had SSH credentials in this case, we just SSH'd in. But actually what we can do, there is an auxiliary module, which I don't believe we've seen much of the auxiliaries yet. So there is an auxiliary module in Metasploit that we can use. And so we want to use auxiliary, another word that I'm really glad we have tab complete on because I can't spell it. And I don't entirely remember what the whole thing is for it. It's auxiliary SSH, maybe. I don't know. Auxiliary scanner, SSH, and SSH underscore login. So typically how this would be used is much like we used Hydra. So we would give it, username and password lists. Like it has username file as an option and password file. So this can be used much like we used Hydra for online password scanning. So just built into Metasploit, but we can also just give it a single password and username and allow it to log in. And it also has a bunch of other things that we can do, but we really just need for this one our hosts and username and password, and then we should be good to go. So set our hosts, our target, set username Jackie, and set password as password. And even though this is a scanner, it will actually open up a command shell for us. So technically all this is really doing is finding whether there's a valid login or not. But if it does find one, it's very nice of it that it did actually go ahead and open up a command shell. Since it was able to log in, it just went ahead and opened up a session for us. So then we have that session because we're only doing this because we want to use a Metasploit module for the local privilege escalation. So local modules, just like our post-exploitation modules that we saw previously, they need a session to run on. Basically, it's going to hop into the session, run the attack against that check rootkit. And if it doesn't have an open session, it can't do that. I mean, certainly we could also, get a public exploit, review it to make sure it's not scary, log in through SSH, like put it on our web server, pull it down onto there and run it locally. But why not just use Metasploit since we can? And so then we let's do a search for ch rootkit. Here we go. So it's exploit units local check rootkit. That's what we want. So use exploit Unix local check rootkit. So if we show our options, so it has check rootkit location. So we need to make sure that that's right, and then we need our session number. So again, just like post exploitation, then we just need that. So let me sessions-i 1 and command check rootkit. It says it's in bin check rootkit, which I think it actually said that in the script. So I think we're gonna need to change that option as well, because the default has it in sbin, so it's gonna try to run it from the wrong place. Control Z to background our open session. So again, show options. We want to set session to 1 because that's the session we want it to go to, and we want to change the location chk rootkit to bin chk rootkit, and then exploit. This may take a second because it runs every 60 seconds, so it may literally take a minute. So it's waiting for it to run via cron. So basically, it uploads. So it says it uploads the attack to temp update, and it's attempting to exploit it, but it actually has to run for that to happen. But as we saw in our script, it's set to run every 60 seconds, which may seem a bit extreme to check for rootkits every 60 seconds, but life. Anyway, now I have to come up with something to say for 60 seconds. You like my coffee cup? It doesn't actually have coffee in it. It has Diet Mountain Dew in it. And we're waiting and we're waiting. Oh, you know what might be a problem, actually? It looks like it set our IP address wrong. Look at this. 10.1.1.4. So that may actually be a problem. Let's kill that. And set our L host. So if we ran it, so now if we do a show options, because, I just let the payload default, but it looks like it defaulted badly. I said usually you can let it default, but it looks like it pulled, an IP address from a different interface, we're 192. something. So let's change that. Things I said many times through this course, you can usually let it default. There are times that things will go horribly wrong, and that looks like that was probably one of them. So, always be ready to debug things. All right, let's say exploit now. And, now we've got, it looks like the handler's on the right IP. And then hopefully this time we will get a win. Hopefully pretty quickly. Because I am all out of funny things to say. That is for sure. So we should get a connection here soon. Wonder, I should just get on the other box and just force it to run. Yeah, I really have nothing. There we go. Okay, cool. So it opens up a command shell. It cleans up the exploit for us, which is nice. So, it had to wait for it to run. It was running every 60 seconds. So, we got it. And so now we have another shell, but now instead of Jackie, if I do a who am I'm root. So, I have access to everything. And if I ls root, there's flag. Usually it's in temp, but for this one, since we're doing local privilege escalation, we do want it to be somewhere that Jackie can't see. Jackie can see temp. I think everybody can see temp. So it is, the flag this time is actually in the root directory. So you have to get root. So, go ahead and cat that guy out, and there's your flag. So again, on this one, check rootkit. It's not listening on a port, so we can't attack it over the network. It's not going to come up on nmap. We do have to have a foothold in the system to begin with to make it work. And then, we looked to see what was running. We found, check rootkit had a vulnerable version, and then we found an exploit for it. We did need an open session, so we did use that SSH login just so we could have an open session. Again, you could just do it manually. You could, put up the exploit code that you either wrote yourself or got off exploit database or something, put it on your web server, pull it down once you do a wget once you've SSH'd into the box, and then run it manually there. But we just kind of let Metasploit automate that sort of stuff for us. We will look at building our own exploits a bit later in the course. But yeah, so definitely, if you don't get the privileges you want, if you want better privileges, definitely take a look at what's running locally on the box to see, if there's vulnerabilities that you can exploit there as well. So that's all for this time. I will see you guys next time.